This is episode 23 of the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. Today we talk about self-image. We talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly parts of self-image. You'll get inspired to look at your self-image differently and become more at peace with yourself. We're going to discuss self-image and why you should care about it, discover the 5 types of self-image and how they affect how you see yourself, and come away with a doable to get you into that positive self-image. Let's get started. This is the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast, and I'm Kim McLaughlin, your host. I am a licensed psychotherapist, inspirational coach, speaker, and best-selling author. I help people feed their soul by putting food in its proper place as nourishment and help them develop more functional ways to nurture themselves. Today's podcast is on something I've actually been talking about this week. It's on self-image, and I was invited to speak at a couple of different events on self-image and how it affects people in the workplace and in their speaking. As I was getting ready for those speaking engagements, I realized that this is something I think we all need to start talking more about, is about our self-image. And so I really took a deep dive into myself and into what I hear goes on with everybody else around how self-image shows up for all of us. So when I was thinking of self-image and how it shows up, I always like to go back to the definition. What's the definition? And I found that the definition of self-image is it's the idea one has of one's abilities, appearance, and personality. So that's the abilities, appearance, and personalities. Because I think sometimes we think self-image is just how we see ourselves on the outside, but it's also related to how we see ourselves on the inside. The other part of that definition is your self-image is the mental picture of yourself both as a physical body and an individual. When you think about yourself, the feelings and images that come up are really important. So when we're looking at this, is self-image is really about how you perceive yourself, how you see yourself inside and out. And it can be positive or it can be negative. And it's really based on a lot of different experiences to whether we see it either way. When we look at self-image, when we look at abilities, appearance, and personalities, I think it's easier to see our self-image based on how we look on the outside or our perception on how we are on the outside. But some areas I was thinking of that might help you see if you have some self-image issues is if you have a problem with confidence. Is your confidence low? Do you not believe in yourself? And if it is, you might be somebody who has a problem with your self-image. Another thing to look at is, do you have low self-esteem? Is the feeling about yourself not good? And that might be translated into the image. And we'll get more into this later as we go along. Lastly, I found a huge correlation between perfectionism and self-image. How you see yourself can actually be related to the idea of being perfect. Am I perfect on the outside? Does my body look perfect? This is what I find a lot of people I work with are having lots of challenges around, the idea that their body doesn't look the way they think it should. And really, if we kind of narrow that down, your body isn't perfect the way you think it should be. Then that lack of perfectionism leads you to think and have this sense of your image of yourself is really poor and you're not holding up to what you think you should be. So self-image is about the idea you have about your abilities, appearance, and personality. And self-esteem is how you feel about yourself. How you feel about yourself is different. And we'll go into more of that later on in a whole different podcast when we'll go more into self-esteem. As I said earlier, your self-esteem and your self-image may be connected, actually connected closely, because if you have a poor opinion about yourself, your self-esteem is going to be low also. So there's kind of this correlation between the two being on the same level. I started thinking about self-image and how can we start really drilling into this and looking more at what self-image is. And as I was looking around at different theories on self-image, there appear to be 5 different types of self-image. And I think when you look at the 5 different types, you can see where you might be out of balance or see where you might be in balance. And so you can kind of course correct on the area that is more out of balance for you. So let's look at the 5 types. The first type of self-image is when it's based on how you see yourself. How do you view your body and how you see yourself? I think often this is where we have the image of ourselves as being fat, as being overweight, as being looking bad. Or the image is of our personality, that who we are is not who we'd like to be. And so that self-image can be based on what you see going on inside of you, inside of yourself, or how you see yourself on the outside. So it's based on how you see yourself in and out. The second type of self-image is self-image based on how others see you. And I want you to make a distinction of this is how they say they see you. So if they say, "Oh, you look pretty today," then you feel good, right? And you can accept it as being honest. I hope that you can accept it as being honest and truthful, but that self-image is derived from how other people see you, what they say they see about you. So if they say you look pretty today, and you feel good about that, then that's your self-image based on how others see you. If they say, "I think you're very smart," then that self-image, if it makes you feel good, can be based on how other people see you. So they can see you inside and out, and it's really based on what they say about you, not based on what you think they think about you, because that's different. The self-image based on how you perceive others see you is that point where someone might tell you something, you look pretty today, and you hear the words, "you look pretty today," but you perceive it as a criticism. That really, "No, I don't look pretty today. I'm not good enough today. Oh, this old thing, I don't look so good." And so you're not accepting what they say of you, and you're perceiving it through your own negative lens. And that is totally your perception. It's really your filter in of what you think they mean. It's also that perception, your sense of what you perceive others think about you or how they see you is also based on what your head says about you. And generally that's negative, that we perceive a lot of negativity about others based on nothing. Sideways glance. "Oh, they're looking at me strangely because they think I'm ugly, or because they think I'm fat, or they don't like me." Well, it's just a sideways glance, and it's really your perception of how they see you rather than a realistic, "This is actually what they think about me." The fourth type of self-image is based on how you perceive yourself. And that's that filter with how you perceive yourself based on just your perception rather than the truth. And I think we often go to that negativity in terms of self-image and how we perceive ourselves. And that's actually when we have a perception that others see us negatively, is we have this negative vision of ourselves. We think then other people see us through that same lens. We'll talk a little bit later about that kind of perception of yourself and how that's related to self-image. The fifth type of self-image is based on how you'd like to be seen. And I love that idea because that's really about thinking about who I want to be. Am I seen in the way I want to be? And it's really, am I acting in the way I want to be seen? Am I emanating this, more often than not, positive regard and positive way of being? And am I seen that way? So that's are the 5 types of self-image. So how you perceive yourself is based on a couple of things. It's based on what you see in the mirror, and then what you say to yourself about what you see in the mirror, whether you see yourself and your body as being positive or being negative. Another way you can see yourself is through that deeper inside look. And that's often where I go with people, is to really look at that deeper inside version of how do you really see yourself? When we really get down to the core, is it really about your self-image? Do you really want it based on what you see superficially on the outside and your judgment about that look on the outside? Or would you like to be seen based on that deeper inside version and really connect with that deeper knowing of who you really are? The perception about yourself, or that self-image, actually builds up over time, right? It really can be a positive look or a negative look. And I think it goes kind of on that spectrum of, if we look at 1 to 5, 1 being not much, our self-image is very poor, to 10 being very great. We can go up and down that scale often throughout our lives. When we're little kids, we actually have positive views of ourselves. We're born in really this kind of positive mode, right? Think of any baby. They are laughing, they are joyful, they are engaged, they'll look at you, they'll have this kind of interaction that's really pleasant and really positive. Over time, we can build up that negativity about our self-image through lots of occurrences in our lives, about how people treat us, how our family treats us, what's our perception of how we're being treated, what we're told about ourselves, what we're told that's critical of ourselves by our family, by other people around us, how we are in school, and what's our thoughts about our intellect and who we are and how we relate to other people. So there's a lot of ways that we can get off track with our self-image over time. But I believe when we're born with this really positive self-image that gets transformed over time, which tells me that if we go back to that really gentle knowing of who we are from the start of our being, from the start of when we were born, we were actually here for goodness. And there is this good inside of us that we've just forgotten about, and we've kind of layered up or walled over that throughout all the years and all of our interactions with people and all of our experiences. When we look at self-image, I think we can see it as positive or negative. And I just want to start pointing this out because I want it to be more front and center for you and more visible about what's really going on and how you're acting and how you're seeing yourself. Because we can tend to get into a negative mode and a negative way of looking at ourselves, and we don't notice it because we think it's real. We think we're being truthful to ourselves, but in reality, we're just reinforcing the negative. And once we start noticing that that's how we're being, we can start doing it differently and start coming from that place. Remember, the 5th self-image type is based on how you would like to be seen. So if we all moved into that image of how I would like to be seen, then I'm coming from a much more positive space and I'm going to engage with the world differently. So some of the positive ways you can see yourself is you can see yourself as attractive, see yourself as smart, funny, healthy, happy. You think you're moving towards your best version of yourself, or you think others see you as moving towards your best version of yourself. I want you to notice, as I said, all those positive self-image, that for you to think of every area, where do you fall on a scale of 1 being, I don't think I'm so good at that, to 10 saying, yes, I am attractive. Yes, I'm smart. I'm funny. I'm happy. I'm healthy. I'm moving towards my best version of myself. That if I'm not hitting that 10 mark, 8, 9, 10 on that scale, what do I need to start doing to enliven more of a positive self-image? If you find you're going more towards that negative side, it will look like you telling yourself you're unattractive, thinking you're stupid, or not funny or unhealthy, unhappy, thinking you're not moving towards your best version of yourself, and thinking others see you also in this negative light. When we're coming from that negative concept, it's really hard to start making any kind of changes in terms of having and living our best life. And that's what I want for you, because when we talk about food issues, body image issues, weight issues, we're really talking about moving off of that negative thought about ourselves and moving into a more positive sense of ourselves. And what you might say right now as I'm talking about this is, Kim, I'm not attractive. I'm not healthy. I'm not happy. And that might be true with how you're seeing yourself right now. But I'd love to have you engage in the idea of start noticing whether that's really true about the core of yourself. Who are you really? And are you striving to move towards your best version of yourself? If you're listening to this podcast, I would say that's a big old resounding yes, because that's what we talk about all the time on this podcast, is how do we move into the best version of ourselves? And this can be your moment to start noticing if you have a negative self-image. And then what do you want to do to move into a positive self-image? Noticing that when we're born, we are positive. There is this kind of, the world is open to us. And as we grow older and the world kind of impinges upon us, we narrow down our focus of what we see about ourselves and the way we can feel about ourselves. I think a way to increase our self-image is really from that inside job. Thinking you're attractive or feeling you're good with your body is really an inside job. It's not about getting on the scale and weighing less or about wearing certain clothes. It's really an inside job about how you feel about yourself. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but I have, that when I notice people walk in the room and sometimes they're not dressed well, or they might have, they don't feel comfortable in their body, but they exude this positivity and this self-image of, I'm good just the way I am. I'm good with who I am. It really shows up as being attractive. It shows up as being interesting and somebody I want to get to know because they feel good about themselves. Hi everyone, this is Kim, and my book is out. Feed Your Soul, Nourish Your Life, a 6-step system to peace with food is live. I recommend you get it. It has all my 6 components of feeding your soul, as well as my own story. Pick it up now. You can find it on my website at feedyoursoulunlimited.com. Thanks. If we're thinking about increasing our self-image from the inside out, let's talk about how do we do that? How do we start increasing our self-image? One of the first ways to do that is to start small and to take it one step at a time. It's really about this kind of step by step progression. How do you finish a marathon? One step at a time. How do you get to where you're going? One step at a time. So start small. Don't do something really huge, but do something small. One of the things I've done in terms of self-image, and this might seem really strange, but when I had my daughter, I knew I would be off work for a while, and I knew that my self-image might suffer just from the pregnancy and afterwards and, the postpartum stuff that comes up. So one of the ways I had to increase my self-image over that point in time is I decided I would wear jewelry every day. To me, that gave me a self-image of affluence, of feeling positive, of feeling well put together. And so I put on jewelry every day. And actually to this day, for the most part, I put on jewelry most every day. And it's a way that I show up that feels good for me in terms of having that self-image. It's a small thing to do, but it was really a big empowering decision on my part. Another way to increase your self-image is to say no to that inner voice, that voice that tells you all those negative things. Remember, if the voice says you're unattractive, stupid, you're not funny, you're not healthy, you're not happy, you're a horrible person. If that inner voice says that to you, tell it no. Tell it to stop it, because it's just not true. And allowing that inner critic, allowing that inner negative voice to go on and on and on will lead you to have this poor negative self-image. And we want you to move out of that. And so saying no to that inner negative voice is a really positive step in the right direction. Another way to increase your self-image is to focus on good enough. When we're focused on perfectionism, which we talked about being one of the kind of symptoms of a negative self-image, that we go to good enough rather than perfection. Perfection stops us from moving forward. Perfection stops us from moving into that best version of ourselves, because if I can't be perfect, I'm not going to even try to move into that best version of myself. So go for good enough. And that, to me, when I've done that, when I do that, it's been really freeing. When I do my podcast, I think of, I can't be perfect on this, but I'm going to go for good enough, and I'm going to put myself out there as a person who wants to increase the positivity in other people's lives. So I go for good enough. Another way to increase your self-image is to notice when you're comparing yourselves to others. When we start comparing ourselves to others, we're always going to be less than. If I compare myself to someone who has this wonderful outfit or this great hairstyle, or they have this New York bestseller book, if I start comparing myself to them, I'm falling into negativity, and I will never win. I'll never be able to come up to the level of this pedestal I've put a lot of people on, because I'll then think, well, I'm not good enough, and I will compare, and comparing holds you back. So notice when you start to compare, and then tell yourself to stop it. It just doesn't work. It's not productive. Another way to help increase your self-image is to let go of haters. Let go of people that are negative. Let go of people that are saying negative things to you. There's sometimes where there's online forums where there's a lot of negativity going around. I tell you, I get out of those things quickly. People that are online can say really mean things. Move off of that. I have friends who are in the online space and do a lot of videos and put themselves out there, and they'll get negative hater comments. And we actually always cheer and say, oh, I got my first hater comment, because you know that you're putting yourself out there when you get a hater comment, but don't let them stop you. Don't let them get to you, and just move on, because there's always going to be somebody who has actually a really poor self-image. People who are haters, people who are negative like that, have a poor self-image, and I just don't choose to be around them. If we want to go to the opposite level of that for our self-image, is hang around with people that are really positive. Hang out with the people that support you, that tell you you're doing great, that high five you, and who notice you and notice all the good things that you do. Hang out with them. And when they say you're doing good, hear that. Let that come in. Know that that is their comment on their noticing of your self-image and noticing that positivity within you. Another way to increase your self-image, and this is one that's I really like this one, is do something nice for somebody else. Be the giver. Be the person who is doing something nice, who is helping others and being that change in the world that you want to be. I think about that in terms of donating money. When I donate money, I give it to causes that are close to my heart and I think help the world. I like to give money to Humane Society. I love giving it to animals that are in need. And actually tomorrow we're going, for my daughter's birthday, we're going to do a tour of the local SPCA. And our money is a donation to the SPCA. And also by going there, we're going to raise awareness with all of the kids and all the friends that they're going to talk to about our visit to the SPCA. They're going to have this positive experience, and then they can come back and talk about the power of adopting animals. And I'm so excited to be a part of that because we're doing something nice to put out the idea of adoption of animals and to also help them financially. So that makes me feel really good that we're doing something kind and helpful for somebody else and for these animals. Increasing your self-image, one of the best things you can do is do things you like, do things you enjoy, be engaged in that activity that's positive. That could be if you enjoy, like I said, wearing jewelry, put some jewelry on. If you enjoy going out and moving your body, go do that. If you enjoy going to a movie, go do that. Do the things that are positive. When we keep doing the things that are negative, that we don't like, and not saying no to it, we then end up having that perception of ourselves of not liking ourselves because we're engaging in activities that we don't like. So start doing the things that you enjoy as a way to move into that positive self-image. As always on these podcasts, we have a doable. And today I think it's pretty clear what our doable should be is how are you going to increase your self-image? What are those things you're going to do? Are you going to say no to that inner negative voice? Are you going to go for good enough? Are you going to stop comparing yourself? Hang out with supportive people. Do things you enjoy. What is it you're going to do to increase your self-image and increase that positive self-image in a really proactive, productive way? I love being on this podcast with all of you. I have gotten such great feedback from everybody that's approached me, that's written me, that has told me that they really enjoy this. And thank you so much for sharing that with me. If you're able to, I would love it if you would write a review of this podcast and give us a review and give us 5 stars. That would be so wonderful because I want more people to hear about what we're doing and to be engaged in this movement of feeding our soul. I look forward to talking with you next week and focusing more on how we can increase the positivity in our lives. Bye, everyone. See you later. Thank you for joining us on the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. We come to you every Monday with fresh new ideas to help you end emotional eating and put food in its proper place as nourishment. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast and review it and let us know what you think. Thank you for joining us.